s'il te plaît, sors-moi de cette obscurité écrasante. Montre-moi la lumière, garde-moi dans ton cœur. Je me languis de toi et je m'endors encore seul. Montre-moi la lumière, garde-moi, s'il te plaît, sors-moi de cette obscurité écrasante. Montre-moi la lumière, garde-moi dans ton cœur. Je me languis de toi et je m'endors encore seul.
Yo, minasan, konbawa ne. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Come to another exciting continuation and no procrastinating on Umineko. We had a very heated argument in the last game, so we'll be seeing more of that, or at least a continuation. What happens after the conflict? Hello, Adonis. So we'll be starting shortly. Welcome, peeps. There are no peeps here. It's just you and me. Peeps. The only peeps I want are the marshmallows that go on sale for Easter. Anyway, won't waste any more time. Hopefully, file still works. Umineko Projecto. Because we can probably skip the opening. Hope you're proud of me, Chad. I'm finally committed to play more of this. Just so I can see some witch ankles. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. Oh no. Actually, yeah, I do want my slippers, but I think I'll be fine. We'll stick with the idea about who the killer was would be the same as deciding who to doubt. It had begun to feel like discussion of the incidents were itself taboo. Sanoa was mentioning it, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood, even though it was left unsettled.
少しだけ雨足が弱まった気がするね。
It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter.
まだいっぱい降ってるよ。
Well, still pouring down. Ooh woo.
仮にやんだってこの島には船がねえんだしな。船が明日すぐに来てくれりゃいいんだがよ。洋館バカンさんもうお腹いっぱいだぜ。
Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island, but it'd be nice. Oh, thank you, Dance, for the sub, boo. Where was I? Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I had enough of this Western Mansion vacation. Hee hee hee.
母さん、明日船はいつ来るのかな。
Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow?
本来なら帰りの船は今日の3時に来てくれることになっていました。
Originally, the boat to take him back would have arrived at 3 o'clock today.
先方も台風が過ぎてから出直すと電話をしてくれたでしょうが、あいにく電話は普通ですから。
Or they probably would have telephoned to say that they come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately the telephones aren't working.
でも向こうも子供の使いではありません。
But they aren't children over there.
客人の方々の送迎目的だと教えてありますから。
They were told this was for the purpose of dropping off and collecting our
お
guests.
そらく明日の朝一番で多分9時頃に来てくれるでしょう。
So they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning, probably around 9 o'clock, I believe. It was completely black outside. Looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She laid out a variety of dishes, and while we didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, trying to use food to enliven everyone's low spirits. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in the fishing village, the simple food she created was something very highly valued. Counting on the range of food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kana also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't skillfully arrange the food, Kanon expressed darkened slightly. But Kumasawa smiled and said everything was fine.
綺麗に盛り付けられてますよ。
It's arranged beautifully.
カノン君もお上手ですよ。
Kana-kun, aren't you skilled?
シャノン姉さんだったらもっと綺麗に。
If it had been Shan-and-Nissan, it would have been more beautiful. Kanon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shana was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight Kana was doing it instead. And as she remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced.
今は忘れなさい。
Forget it for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced upon. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had become sour. Genji became his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request.
はい、
Yes,
今は忘れます。
I will forget it for now. Good.
それがいいだろう。
That's probably for the best. Genji purposely faced away from Kanon as he spoke. He did so beautifully, he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eyes. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words.
金蔵さんもどこへ行かれたんでしょうな。
I wonder where Kinzo has gone.
ご無事だといいのですが。
Hope that is safe, but
わかりません。
I do not know. Also, hello, Melseto, welcome.
ただ、すべては親方様が望まれ、仕組まれたことのように思っています。
Only I think everything is as the master hoped, as he has arranged.
それを邪推することは、親方様にお仕えする家具には過ぎたことです。
To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture working for the master.
源氏さんは怖くないのですか？
Aren't you scared, Genji-san?
私には今夜まだ何か良くないことが起こるような気がして怖いのです。
I am frightened something bad will occur again tonight.
怖いことなど何も。
I have nothing to be afraid of.
私はただ後ろ宮家にお仕えするだけですので。
I simply work for the Yoshiramiya family. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was slightly dubious. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, I'm back. Could Nenji possibly think that he would be left out of this? He kind of began to imagine what was happening inside the mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that it was something of Kinzo's design. If he likened this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game, and as a result, 6 pieces had fallen. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed that he alone was outside the chessboard and safe? Nanjo thought about it. Wasn't everyone just a piece on the chessboard lined up equally without any exception? Was it even Genji who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone? No, wasn't Nanjo himself, although proud of his position as Kinzo's only close friend. Just another one of pieces laid out on the chessboard.
源氏さん、
Genji-san.
私は今夜が本当に怖いのです。
I am really frightened about tonight.
無事に明日の朝を迎えられることを心より願っています。
I am hoping with all my heart that we'll still be safe when tomorrow morning comes. The guest room that Eva and Hideyoshi had moved into was used to house guests before the guest house had been constructed. So until a few years ago, they had stayed in this room with family conference and were very familiar with. This room was just like a room at a hotel and a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was more comfortable than the parlor.
やっぱり家族だけだとリラックスできるな。
Oh, I guess it's true that we can relax more when you're alone with your immediate family.
他のみんなも客室にこもって鍵をかけてりゃええんや。
They should all do this, they should all just do this. Shut themselves in guest rooms and lock the doors.
夏日姉さんが客間を出るなって威張り散らしてるんだもん。
But Natsuhi-san throwing her weight around, saying no one can leave the parlor. Oh my god.
誰も口答えなんてできないでしょ。
How can any of them talk back?
あの人ずーっと冷や飯を食ってきたから兄さんが死んでやっと天下が来たって張り切ってんのよ。
She always felt that she was being left out in the cold, so now that Nissan's dead, she's in high spirits, thinking her time has finally come.
まったくずうずうしいったら嵐の。
Seriously, how shameless can she be?
まあそう言うな。
Come on, don't say that.
夏日さんもあれで結構頑張っとるんやで。
Natsuhi-san's working pretty hard.
お前もそう突っかからんでもええやないか。
No need to jump on her like that. My god, woman.
さっきのレシートの件もあそこまでは言い過ぎやで。
Even her husband's calling her out. And about that receipt earlier, you went too far there.
だって
Ah, come on.
あそこで言わなかったらもう言うタイミングがないんだもん。
If I hadn't said it there wouldn't be any good time to say it. Eva, skulking cutely, sat down beside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed watching TV.
でも、こうして二人きりになるのはずいぶん久しぶりよね。
Still, it's been a long time since we've been alone like this.
そうやな。
Sure has. Sure hope nothing bad's gonna happen to them later.
思えばわしもお前も老けたもんや。ジョージが生まれてから何もかもがあっという間や。
When I think about it, both you and I have gotten older since George was born. Everything has gone by in the blink of an eye.
本当にあっという間よ。
Really has gone by in the blink of an eye.
子供を作るの焦りすぎたかしら。
Wonder if we were too hasty in having a child. Eva's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yes, she has thought it once in a lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to have a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsuhi without having any sign of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. As for Eva herself, she would be removed from the Shiramiya register anyway once she got married, so whether a successor to the head was born or not, it was all at the same to her. So she had thought that one day she had been heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was a whispering of the devil that she heard in her greed. Perhaps she could remain in the Shiramiya register if she gave birth to a successor first. If things went well, perhaps she could even inherit the Shiramiya family herself. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he approved of it instantly. This had not been because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more that a long-forgotten thing called family. So he agreed without hesitation not to fuss over which family name they were to keep upon getting married, and assented to having his name entered into the Shiramiya family register. It wasn't easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter Eva knew Kinzo's personality well, so she chose the time when Kinzo had most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, and expertly managed to make him accept Hideyoshi as a son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who was achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and permitted himself to transfer into the Shiramiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Yoshida-Miya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. George had been worth their life and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why she couldn't stand that he was in love with a servant like Shannon. So when she had learned that Shannon had died and the engagement had been invalidated, while part of her had been shocked at the gruesome crime, another part of her has been relieved that her precious George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl.
私クラウス兄さんのことが昔から嫌いだったわ。
I always did hate Kraus Nissan.
偉そうで威張ってて、自分がやがては当主になるのだと自慢してて。
He was so full of himself, always swaggering around, so proud that he would one day become the head.
だからそれに一矢報いてやりたかった。でもそれは子供の頃の感情なのよ。でもその感情は結局自分の人生のほとんどを支配した。それだけならまだいい。その感情はあなたやジョージまで巻き込んで振り回してしまった。
So I want to get back at him. Those were just my emotions as a child, of course. But in the end, those emotions took over my entire life. And if only that had been all, because of those emotions I got you and George involved, and I used you.
エヴァ、備え自分を責めるな。
Eva, don't blame yourself so much. Hideyoshi sat up and put his arm around Eva. She could feel warm understanding from him.
わしはな、自分の人生はもうとっくに折り返しに入っとる。でもな、今日までの生活を後悔したことは一度もないで。一度もや。
Well, I reached the halfway point in my life long ago, but you know, I have never once regretted how I lived my life, not once.
エヴァと一緒で他の男どもじゃ味わえん楽しい人生になったと思っと。戦争で身寄りを失ったわしにもう一度家族のぬくもりを教えてくれた。
He is too nice to his bitch of a wife.
だから後ろ宮の家には感謝しとるし、わしの唯一の家だと思っとる。
I think that since I've been with you, Eva, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After I lost my relatives in the war, you taught me once more what the warmth of a family is, so I'm grateful for that Ushiyamiya family. And I think of it as my only family.
わしとお前が歩んできた人生にな、無駄なことなんかな。
Hello, Lulu Bunmello. In this life I've led with you, not a single thing has been wasted.
今日までほんまに楽しい人生やったで。
It's really been a fun life up to today.
ありがとう、あなた。
Thank you, honey. Thank you for gifting a sub. Enjoy your emotes. Eva hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Eva existed.
感謝するのはわしや。
Oh yeah. They're just setting him up, and then they're gonna like, you know what, you're too good. We gotta end it. This is not a wholesome story. I'm the one who should be thanking you.
今日までお前と一緒にいて後悔した日なんてあらへん。
To this day, there hasn't been a single day that I've regretted being with you.
私もよ。
Me too.
あなたと一緒になれてよかった。
I'm so glad to have you by my side.
ジョージももう立派な大人や。
George is already a fine adult.
わしが見張ってなくてもしっかり仕事ができる一人前や。
He's a man who can do his job well on his own, even if I'm not there looking out for him.
で、
How about it?
正月あたりをのんびりモルジブあたりで過ごさんか？
How about it? After New Year's, do you want to go spend some time in Maldives?
わしら二人水いらずや。
Just the two of us, no one else.
いやよ。
No way.
毎年年賀状の返礼で寝る暇もないとか言ってるじゃない。
Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep?
次の正月だけはなしや。
None of that this New Year's.
年賀状は見ん。
I won't read New Year's cards.
黙って下のお年玉くじだけチェックするんや。
I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I won a New Year's lottery.
今年はカラーテレビくらい当てたいで。
It'd be nice if we won a color TV this year. Oh man, they have black and white TV.
やだ
No way.
モルジブでお年玉くじのチェックなんてしたくない
I don't want to check the lottery in the Maldives.
いやそいつもなしや。
None of that either.
水いらずのんびりでジョージが生まれる直前の新婚時代の続きをちょいとしてみんか。
None of that either. Just the two of us taking our time, carrying on from when we were newlyweds just before George was born. Yeah,
それならいいわね
that does sound nice.
モルジブはええとこらしいで。
I hear the Maldives are wonderful.
なんもない島に美しいサンゴ礁と水上コテージが並んでてな。
An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral reefs and cottage lined up over the water.
新婚時代の続きっていつからなの
Carrying from when we were newlyweds? When will that be?
仕事納めしたらすぐや。
Soon I finish some business.
旅行店に聞いてみんとわからんが、多分大晦日前には。
I won't know till I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve.
いや
No way.
今すぐがいい
Right now, I want to start right now. Previously, or maybe coquettishly, Eva pled for his lips. The only sound that filled the room were the distant voice of announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of the rain against the window. Sure hope they fuck, cause it'll be their last. There was a knock on the door and Genji-san entered.
奥様、
Madam,
お夕食の準備が整いました。
dinner has been prepared.
お食事はまたこちらでよろしいですか？
Yay, Floxy made it to Clue. The anime adaptation of Clue. Dinner's been prepared. Will you eat and hear again? So since the head writer of Umineko Higurashi is making Silent Hill, do you think Silent Hill is just going to become a visual novel but with combat? I feel like that's how it's going to be laid out. 'Cause that's really what he's famous for. Didn't see the notif. Test model in VR. Oh, I see. Yeah, give me my TV dinner, onegaishimasen.
ここへ運ばせなさい
Bring in here.
南條先生はまだ厨房にいるのですか
Dr. Nanjo's still in the kitchen.
はい。
Hi.
次の一手を熟考したいとおっしゃっております。
He said that he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move.
ご安心を。他の使用人たちとご一緒です。
Don't worry, he is with the other servants. Nothing sus is happening for now.
源氏さんはじい様の相手ができるくらいチェスが強いもんな。
Genji-san's good enough at chess to be grandfather's opponent.
南條先生よりも強いらしいぜ。
I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, you know?
そうなんだ。
Is that right?
昔相手をしてもらったことがあるけど、あれは勝たせてくれたのかな。
I played against him long ago, but he must have let me win.
マリア、もうすぐ飯だそうだぜ。
Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon.
しかし、よく一日中テレビを見ていて飽きねえな。
But look at you, you've been watching TV all day long and you still haven't gotten bored. Ooh, woo.
いつもテレビいっぱい見てるから平気。
I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine. Woo.
マリアちゃんはテレビっ子なんだね。
Yeah, if this game were made today, she'd be an iPad kid. Yeah, Maria sure is a kid. Thank you for the head pat. Did center though, but yeah, I guess you can head pat battler. There we go. Also hip at Maria. She is our beloved iPad kid.
食事だから机の上を片付けないとダメだぜ。
Food's coming, so we might have to clean up the table. It is so cluttered with the aftermath of the drawing contest we all been having, using several pages torn out of Maria's notebook. Also, hello. Jessica began cleaning up quickly. Still, everyone here sure can draw. Really shocking.
源氏
Genji.
エヴァさんたちにもせめて食事くらい一緒にしないかとお声をかけなさい。
Ask Eva-san Hideyoshi-san whether they would at least like to have dinner with us.
どうせ断るでしょうが。
Although they would probably turn us down.
かしこまりました。
Certainly.
お父様の次はエヴァさんですか。
First father, now Eva-san.
つくづく後宮家の食卓には全員が揃いませんね。
We seem incapable of managing a full showing at the Ushiyamiya dinner table. Natsu felt her headache started throbbing again and lightly held her temple. Distance from the kitchen and parlor wasn't that large, so Genji had gone there and back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsu had warned him not to be alone without good reason. Just now Nanjo had admonished himself, saying that it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Genji took Kano with him, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest room. Ai, moshi moshi. Genji knocked the door.
エヴァ様、秀吉様、
Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama.
お夕食の準備が整いました。
Dinner has been prepared. He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response.
源氏様、これは
Genji-sama, mite, mite. Look at this. Cannon pointed under the door. A Western-style envelope has been inserted under it. Normally, when something was inserted this way, it would be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kano and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western-style envelope, was Kinzo's envelope the same as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with? Are?
間違いない。
There's no mistaken.
親方様の封筒。
It's the season of the witch. There's no mistaken, it's the master's envelope.
あるいは
Or could it be? Cannon's 3/4 pose looks so weird to me. It's just in the side of him, he looks so flat. Maybe that's just me, but it just doesn't look right to me. Although it had been Kinzo's envelope, the author of the letter Maria had read aloud last night had not been Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice.
エヴァ様、
Eva-sama!
エヴァ様、
Eva-sama!
源氏でございます。
It is Genji. Please open up.
いらっしゃいますか。
Are you
お
there?
返事をお願いいたします。
Please,
Eva-sama.
please answer, Eva-sama. But there was no response from inside. Sometimes when the servants went to call for a guest for a meal, the guest would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. Times like that, the servant would stick a letter to the door to show that they had been called and when the guest be. However, despite that Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Eva's name, there was no answer. Cannon stuck his ear to the door and holding his breath listened for any sounds coming from inside.
テレビの音らしきものが
I hear something that sounds like the television,
でも気配が感じられません。
but I don't sense anyone.
お部屋は空っぽかも。
The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief and carefully not to touch it with his bare hands. Gently pulled the envelope which had been stuck under the door. It had been sealed with a deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark of the sealing wax had come from the Shiramiya family's head ring.
エヴァ様
Eva-sama!
エヴァ様
Eva-sama!
どうかお返事を
Please answer.
もうお部屋にはいらっしゃいませんか
Are you still in the room? Even so, there was no answer. There was a chance that the two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. But then why would they keep the door locked? This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think that she had gone out for a casual stroll. Genji groped around the pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys, including the one that would open the guest room.
ケンジ様
Genji, you're gonna open the door without permission? What? Kana also understood what it meant. That would sometimes lock a guest door, but so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they had made sure that the guests were out. To unlock the door for a separate reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guest was still in there and without their permission, was an action of the unbecoming of a servant. However, Genji has decided, if the only problem had been that this knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was undoubtedly Kinzo's, or rather, one of the Western-style envelopes that the Shigamiya family had. And after last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone other than Kinzo...
エヴァ様
Eva-sama!
申し訳ございません
My apologies.
お部屋を失礼させていただきます
Allow me to enter your room. After giving a final notice, Genji stuck out one of the keys in the bundle in the keyhole. There was a sound of a door unlocking. And then he slowly turned the knob and slowly started opening the door. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Is the cat in the box dead or not? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clink. That was the sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain has been secured. You can't go in when there's a chain. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. This meant that they were in the room now. The sound of the voice on the TV swept out the room. The lights, the chain, the TV. All of these things made it clear that they were in the room. But there was no sign of them. Genji called to Eva once again through the crack of the door. But there was no answer.
ケンジ様
The suspense. Genji-sama.
いかがしますか
What should we do? As part of the job, the servants were unable to almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open a door with a chain. Their only way to get by the chain was to cut it. That was certainly not permitted as part of the servants' usual work. A creepy chill was already rushing up their backs. Cannon held his breath again and tried to send someone through the door, but even so, he was not meant to sense anyone.
私は奥様をお呼びしてくる
I'll go call Madam.
カノンはチェーンの切断を
Cannon could cut the chain.
はい
Hi, yes, wakarimashita. As Cannon rushed away hurriedly to get a cutting tool, he was called back by Genji.
待てカノン
Wait, Cannon-kun.
厨房に戻り熊沢と行動するよ
Go to the kitchen and take Kumasawa-san with you.
う断じて一人で行動してはならんぞ
Whatever you do, do not act alone.
はい
Yeah,
かしこまりました
certainly. It looks like Kano was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of an urgent situation. But Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself. But in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kanon. In the kitchen was Kumasawa, who was piling food on the serving cart. And Nanjo, who had been seemed to have thought of a move that would turn the tables on Genji and had been awaiting his return, wanting to show him. but he immediately realized that something was wrong with Genji's demeanor.
おや、どうしましたか、源氏さん。
What happened, Genji-san?
南條先生、申し訳ありませんが、この勝負は一度中断させてください。カノンはチェーンを頼む。
Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow me to suspend this match for a time. Canon, take care of the chain.
熊沢、食事の配膳は一時中断し、カノンと同行するよう、私は奥様のところへ行く。南條先生もご一緒に。
Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Canon. I will go over to Madam. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo.
何かあったんですかな。
Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen.
熊沢さん、
Kumasawa-san.
申し訳ありませんが、僕と一緒に来てください。
My apologies, but please come with me.
何があったんですか、カノンさん。
What happened, Canon-san? Unable to take in the situation, Kumasawa-san said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo and chased after Canon, who had flown out in the hallway. Accompanied by Kumasawa-san, Canon went to the storehouse, and from amongst the tools packed in the toolboxes hanging on the walls, he looked for a tool that could have used to cut the chain.
何を探してるんですか。
What are you looking for?
私も手伝いますよ。
I will help.
ドアチェーンを切断するんです。
We're cutting a door chain.
大きめの番線カッターはどこだっけ。
Where was that large wire cutter?
ドアチェーンを。
A door chain?
どうしてそんなことをするんですか。
Why do you do something like that?
エヴァ様たちの部屋にチェーンが。
The chain is locked into Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room.
中にいらっしゃるはずなのに、お声をかけても返事がないんです。
Even though they should be inside, when we called to them, they didn't answer. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she didn't realize that this was an urgent situation.
これなら多分。
This'll probably. Kenna took a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it would be easier to understand if described as having the shape of a large pair of pliers. He recalled being warned that it was a dangerous tool that could easily cut through one of your fingers. Kenna took that and rushed up to the stairs. He knew it instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or maybe, already.
待ってください、カノンさん。
Please wait, Kanon-san.
早く。
Hurry! Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. When Kanon changed his grip on the wire cutter and looked at the door, he let out a awestruck, speechless. Oh no.
なんですかこれは。
What is this? The door is covered in blood. Oh no. Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face paled. It was no surprise, because right there on the door, just like the magic circle had been drawing on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with paint that looked like blood. However, it was dubious whether this one could be called a magic circle, because unlike what most people would think of a magic circle, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more geometrical shape. However, the strange non-alphabetical characters written on the gaps of the figure were without a doubt the same as a magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that had Kanon struck speechless was not how eerie the magic circle was. Only moments ago, this hadn't been here. He had returned to the kitchen for a short while. He had then gone to the storehouse to grab a tool and headed right back. But those together, it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's knees gave away and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa had done this first, then Kana surely would have wanted. Beatrice-sama.
ベアトリーチェ様の仕業ですよ。恐ろしや恐ろしや。
It's the work of Beatrice-sama. How horrid! How horrid! Kanan gulped and readied the wire cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to the Serbian magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch a steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get closer, he couldn't cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, went even closer, putting the wire cutter up against the chain, and then pressing with all the strength and cut through the chain far more easily than he had imagined. The cut chain fell two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth.
Kanon-san, 足元に封筒が。
Kanon-san, by your feet, an envelope.
しかもこれは親方様のもの。
And isn't that the master's? It looked like Kumasawa had noticed the Western-style envelope at the bottom of the door, and then the sealing wax had been sealed with the head's ring. Kana had lost for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room, but he decided to prioritize his original purpose. Kana pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was why he wouldn't have fingerprints left on the door. If his worst fears had been realized, the police wanted to investigate this room too. Slowly pushed the door open. He was able to hear the sound of the television that had been seeping out silently more clearly now. Eva-sama? Eva was faced up in bed. On the bed with her shoes still on. Kumasawa fairly entered after Kanon, who was hiding behind his back, screamed and shrieked, "Hee!" again when she saw Eva like that. Eva's shoes had been the first part of her that Kanon had seen, so incongruently, of wearing shoes on a bed was the first thing that entered his mind. But after he shifted his line of sight towards Eva's head, Kanon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa-san. On the right of Eva's forehead, something was set there. Growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead. An old-fashioned knife or some weapon like that was struck right in. From the base where it struck and blood dripped down, stained the sheets on the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave away once more as she sank down to the floor. The witch has claimed another! Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva, with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead, was dead. Both eyes were wide open, and the image of a person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the mouth with which to speak that truth had already been internally sealed. Even though that forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was struck into Eva's forehead, standing there almost perfectly upright. And the handle was a design so complicated you could never expect to see it on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with one word: the occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! If it was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. And at that moment he opened the door. He was greeted by steam and the sound of a shower. The bathroom was one the same familiar style, almost like a hotel bathroom, containing both a bath and toilet. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep the water from flying out. He's dead too! The waterproof curtain was half open. The line tumbled down in the bath was Hideyoshi completely naked, but both eyes still open. And those eyes were pointed right at Kanon. Just as if a weapon of demonic design was struck to his forehead. Since his head had been under the hot water of the shower the whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Eva's been. But the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then Natsuhi's voice rang through the hall. She probably was coming with Genji. Again with this graffiti? Also, hello, Kachi. 0265. What about this letter? What does it say on the inside? Finally, some drama. I have not read it. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. Thank you for the head pats. Went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left fingerprints. That's fine, you can lurk. Stating with this finally, Natsuhi picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself where she found Eva dead. Eva-san? Guys, what would you do if the person you were bickering with just ended up dead, like literally hours after? Madam, Hideyoshi-sama is here too. This is truly atrocious. Canon, turn off the shower. This is like a moment in The Shining, almost. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to. Yes. Canon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small bottle of body soap had fallen its cap off. It really looked like he had been attacked right in the middle of taking a shower. Spray of blood was clung slightly to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Nanjo. I understand. No signs of postmortem livitivity. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. I'd say barely an hour has passed since they were killed, if that. But even so, how a weapon with that short handle could do that to the skull? I can't imagine. Nacho checked her pulse and her pupils, making certain of their death once more. As Kano watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they are dead doing with all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but after deciding that they were possible it would be better to have the scene over to the police without disturbing it, he left it alone. However, a close examination of the base revealed that it had been no blade. Or rather, it was shaped like a flat blade, but was conical. He noticed rather that the knife was more like a short-handled sphere rather than a shape better suited for thrusts and slicing. Rather than a short spear, some might call it a thick ice pick. At any rate, the original hideous purpose for which this weapon was its unsettling design was made, and exactly how that purpose was carried out were both displayed here in such a glaring fashion that there was absolutely no need to use further words to describe it. Hideyoshi hoped to escape the repulsive strain filling the bathroom as soon as he could, covered her mouth with her handkerchief, dashed from the room. Just viewing the gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, the image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge of vomit was exactly the same feeling she had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsuki couldn't help but stand her back facing the guest room, fighting the sickness in her stomach. Anyway, we can't let the kids... We can't let George see this room. Quickly close his room up. Gracious, no, it shouldn't be shown to them. If George saw this parent in this brutal state, but the recklessly approaching footsteps were obviously George even before he came flying into the room. Fuck. George and the other children have been waiting in the parlor. But when they see Genji had called the Natsuki out and hadn't noticed her turn pale and fly out of the room, they had felt they might have been the bearer of bad news. And when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Father! Mother! What is this? Another magic circle? Maria, unbothered. No. Uncle Ethan, Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Kanon-kun! What is all this about? Butler-sama. Kana didn't even say anything. George screamed after he ran into the room and told them everything they needed to know. Who did this? I'll kill you! I'll kill you! George-kun, hang in there, dear. Natsuki touched George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George collapsed to the floor beside Eva and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. And he poured on the bed on his fist over and over again. George Nisan, hang in there. Battler? Battler-sama. Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway and was without restraint covering his eyes with his right hand, weeping. Horrible. It's horrible. He proposed a girl he loved and lost her the next day. On the same day, even his mom and dad were killed. Isn't that just way too harsh? Of course he felt sorry for everyone who had died, but Battler felt more sorry for those who had been left alone by the deaths of others. Everyone here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't even the only one who felt sorry for her. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else. Sure, all people die sooner or later. If you're human, the day is going to eventually come when you got to fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you. But so, shouldn't that be far in the future for Aniki? And shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible. That's too horrible. Bastard! Bastard! Don't you have the slightest fucking bit of human compassion? Ew.
バトラ泣かない泣かない。
Batara-kun, don't cry, don't cry. Marie tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical sounding voice. Battler finally wiped his tears.
ああくそもう流さないぜ
He's having a main character moment. Damn it, I won't cry anymore.
悔し涙も悲しみの涙ももう二度と流さねえぜ
Tears of regret, tears of sadness, I won't shed them again.
ああ全然ダメだ
Yeah, it's no goddamn good at all.
俺たちは魔女様に爪を食らってるわけだ
The witch is backing us into a corner.
主勢一方ってわけだ
We're always on the defensive.
そりゃダメだぜ全然ダメだ
That's no good, it's no goddamn good.
チェス盤がひっくり返っちまうぜ
I'll flip over the chessboard.
野郎は俺たち羊が明日まで逃げる手段もなく怯えてるだけだろうと思ってるだろうよ
That bastard probably thinks of us like sheep just cowering in fear until tomorrow with no way of running.
ひっくり返すぜ
But guess what? I'll flip it over.
明日までこの島から逃げられねえのは野郎も同じだ
Bastard can't escape this island until tomorrow either.
しょんべんちびりそうになりながら逃げ隠れするのは俺たちじゃねえ野郎の方だ
We won't be the ones hiding away pissing ourselves, that's fucker will.
暴いてやるぜ必ずな
I'll expose you, you'll see.
明日までに
By tomorrow.
いや明日なんか待たねえ今夜だ
No, fuck tomorrow. Tonight!
今夜中にその胸ぐらをつかみ上げてやる
Before this night's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar. Intense.
とにかくこの部屋は警察が来るまでこのままにして施錠します
At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything as it is until the police comes.
いいですね
All agreed? It's gonna smell like shit in there. Nancy proclaimed it as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had a right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he had shed enough tears. Still facing away from this, George nodded slightly and rose to his feet, and everyone else agreed to his response. Nancy still hadn't opened the head's Western-style envelope she had picked up, but since they were all leaving the room now, she decided that she would unseal it in the parlor where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked into the hallway to head back to the parlor, some of them immediately felt something out of place, or maybe sensed something strange. Well.
答えよ。
Stinky. Uh-oh, stinky.
マリアもわかるか
You notice it too, Maria?
こりゃ何の匂いだよひでえ匂いだぜ
What is this stench? It smells awful. As they sniffed the air, they noticed a horrible foul burnt smell like anything any of them had ever smelled before drifting through the hallways.
私ちょっと厨房を見てきます。
I will go quickly check the kitchen.
火はちゃんと消したはずなんですよ。
I'm sure I turned the flame off. After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural that Kumasawa, who had just been cooking in the kitchen, suspected that her own clumsiness had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away.
カノン、熊沢と行きなさい。
Kinda go with Kumasawa.
一人にさせないように。
Don't let her be alone.
はい
Yes. After nodding at Genji's orders, Kanto went chasing after her. The others, though they did not run, also followed in order to search for the source of the smell.
臭い。
Stinky.
これは確かに鼻が曲がりそうな匂いですね
Certainly not the stench of two corpses in the room, right? Surely is a stench that makes a nose wrinkle.
しかし 換気のために窓を開けてもいいものか。
However, I'm not sure it would be safe to open a window for ventilation. Natsu had reluctant to open the window in a situation where self-defense was so important.
換気扇を回させましょう。
Let us run the fan.
窓を開ける必要はないと思います。
I do not believe there would be any need to open the windows.
ジョージの兄貴。
George Aniki.
話しかけても大丈夫かよ。
Is it okay to talk to you?
犯人を探す相談なら構わないよ。
If it's about finding the killer, then I have no problems. It seemed that George had already climbed out of the abyss of his sorrow. All that filled his chest was just a quiet flame of hatred towards the killer who had stolen the lives of his beloved parents.
部屋にはチェーンがかかってた。
The chain for the room was set.
さっき構造を見たが、とても外から細工できる代物じゃねえ。
From what I could tell by looking at it, I'm positive that it couldn't be opened from the outside.
つまり完璧な密室だったってことだ。
In other words, that means it was a perfect locked room.
そうなるね。
Yeah, it does.
バラ庭園の倉庫の時はシャッターの鍵を使用人室からこっそりと持ち出したのだろうとか。
In the case of the Rose Garden storehouse, they might have sneaked the shutter's keys out of the servant's room.
あるいは複製の鍵を持っていた可能性とか、いくつか方法が想像できた。
Or maybe they had a duplicate key. I can imagine many ways they could have done it.
でもチェーンは違う。
But this chain is different.
チェーンは一般に浸透した施錠方法の中で最もシンプルに密室を構築できる。
Among generally used locking techniques, the chain is the simplest one to create a locked room with.
チェーンだけは物理的に破壊しない限り外からはどうにもならないぜ。
Only a chain will block everyone coming from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken.
じゃあつまり犯人は扉からは出入りしなかったってことなのか。
So does this mean that the culprit couldn't have gone in or out through the door?
こりゃ面白いや。
That's interesting.
つい数時間ほど前にも扉以外でどうやって部屋から出入りしたのかってみんなで騒いだ気がするぜ。
Just a few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss over how to get to the room without using the door. Back then, everyone had been making a fuss over how grandfather had disappeared from his room. Because of the receipts that Auntie Eva had snuck into the door on a whim, it was revealed that the door had remained sealed. And since Aunt Natsuhi had been the only person to enter and exit during the time, she had come under suspicion. Auntie Eva had proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsuhi might have thrown grandfather out the window and by the door herself. But the door is much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The door would have been closed from the inside and the bodies had been in the room. This time it really was, without exaggeration, a true locked room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, 3 incidents might have occurred, and all 3 times the door had been the point of interest. The first was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about it, this can't really be called a locked room. The next was the door sealed by the receipt. However, since Aunt Natsuhi had entered the room, she couldn't have let grandfather out through the window or thrown him out, and she could have been able to lock the window before leaving. Or like my crazy theory, who had been hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you really can't call this one a locked room either. And now we have this door sealed with the door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The door, the window, the door, everything has been locked from the inside. It was a perfect locked room. The first hadn't been a locked room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been a locked room because Aunt Natsuki could have been suspected. But this time no one can be suspected. This room was a perfectly locked room sealed by a door chain with the denied access equal to everyone.
なら犯人は室内に入らずに犯行に及んだ。
That case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room?
部屋の外から何らかの方法で
Some method from the outside the room?
確かに
Good thought.
チェーンである以上人が通れるほどは開けなくても多少の隙間を開けることができる
It is a chain, so even though it can't be opened wide enough for a person to fit through, you can open it a small crack.
ノックして顔を覗かせたところを襲うとか
Culprit could knock on the door to make them peer out before attacking them more.
いや甘いか
Wait, is that naive?
甘いよな
Yeah, it is.
エヴァおばさんの遺体が扉のすぐそばだったならそれも考えたぜ
If Auntie Ava's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible.
だがエヴァおばさんは部屋の奥のベッドの上
But she was on the bed in the center of the room.
しかも秀吉おじさんはバスルームだった
Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom.
チェーンの隙間からでは姿を見ることもできねえし手を伸ばすこともできねえ
Looking from the crack in the door, he couldn't even see them, and you couldn't reach them with your hands either.
ちくしょう全然ダメだぜさっぱりだ
Damn it, this is no goddamn good at all. I don't even have a clue. Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria.
おお
Ew, ew.
満足
Satisfied?
満足って何がだよ
What do you mean, satisfied?
バトラは親族の誰かを疑うのが嫌だから犯人はベアトリーチェであってほしいと願ったよ
Beth, since you didn't want to doubt any of your relatives, you made a wish, saying that you wanted the culprit to be Beatrice, right?
だからベアトリーチェは叶えた
Well, Beatrice granted your wish.
バトラが言った通り絶対に人間には無理なことをしてバトラに魔女の存在を信じさせてくれた
Just as you said, she did it, in a way that no human could, to make you believe in the witch.
なのにわがまま
Yet, you're being stubborn.
あいつ
Correction needed. I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly, on the other hand with my fist.
ああ叶えてくれてありがとうよ
Sure, thanks for granting it.
今のはその礼と不謹慎な時に笑ったことへの教育的指導だ
That was the expression of my gratitude, and a free lesson to not laugh at times like this.
それより教えやがれ
More importantly, tell me,
エヴァおばさんたちの部屋の扉にもまた怪しげな落書きがされていた
there was more mysterious graffiti on the door to Auntie Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room.
あれもまた魔法陣なのか
Was that another magic circle?
あれは特に覚えやすい特徴的な形なんだからあのくらい知っててほしいねあいて
It was an especially memorable and characteristic design, so I hope you at least know that one.
知らねえから花を持たせてやってんだ
I don't know, that's why I've handed the stage over to you.
ごちゃごちゃ言わねえで解説しろい
Quit whining and explain.
バトラは暴力的だね
You sure are a violent battler.
あんまり意地悪すると教えないよ
I won't tell you if you are too mean, get it?
あいて言うよこのげんこつ男
I'll say it, you brutish man.
あれは月の一の魔法陣だよ
That's the first magic circle of the moon.
何の意味がある
What does it mean?
その魔法陣のご利益は
What does the magic circle's benefit?
書かれてるヘブライ語の意味は
What does the Hebrew writing mean? Man, the stream's always when I gotta work. I hope it's going well for you so far. Thank you. Intense shit is happening.
記されているのは旧約聖書詩編第107編の16節
The words from the Old Testament, Plasm 107, verse 16.
主は聖堂の扉を破り鉄の管抜きを打ち破っ
Thank
て
you for
ください
gifting
ま
a
した
sub. For he has broken the gates of brass and cut through the bars of
魔
iron.
法陣の効用は2つ
This magic circle has two effects.
一つは いかなる方法によって閉ざされた扉でも開くことができる。
First, it can open any door regardless of the method used to lock it.
そりゃ便利な魔法だぜ。
That sure is convenient magic.
つまり魔法の力に頼らなきゃ開けぬ密室の扉っていう魔女様のアピールってわけか。
So your witch is proclaiming this one to be a door that can't be opened without relying on the power of
もう一
magic.
つの効用は
And the other effect.
開かぬ扉を八方塞がりの事態に見立て扉を開く。
It takes the unopening door as a representation of unsustainable situation and opens it.
難解な事態の時に用いることでそれまで思いつきもしなかった解決策を与えてくれるんだよ。
By using it in a difficult situation, it gives you solutions you hadn't even thought of until then.
平たく言うと観察力や洞察力、ひらめきや直感を授けてくれるんだね。
To put it simply, it grants the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration, and intuition.
ベアトリーチェはバトラごとき人間風情にこの扉の開き方がわかるものかって挑発してるんだよ。
Beatrice is trying to provoke you, lowly humans, since she thinks there's no way you could ever understand how this door was opened. Ouchie.
よーし、もう黙れご苦労。
Alright, good word. Now shut up.
上等だぜ。その魔女の挑戦受けてやら。
Suits me fine. I'll accept that witch's challenge.
マリアちゃん、
Maria-chan.
この世に魔女も悪魔も存在しない。
Things like witches and demons don't exist in this world.
父さんと母さんは誰かが殺した。
Someone killed mother and father.
それが僕のよく知る人間なのか知らない人間なのかはわからない。
I don't know whether that was someone I know or not.
でもそのどちらであっても必ず人間なんだ。
But either way, it was definitely a human.
しかしどうやって
Yeah, but how?
せいぜい10センチ程度しか開かない扉の隙間からどうやったら室内の2人を
How did they reach them through a crack in the door that couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide?
それにしても耐え難い匂いです。
At any rate, I can hardly stand this stench.
一体何事なのですか？
What in the world could it be? Kana and Kumasawa, who had gone ahead, realized before they even reached the kitchen and the smell wasn't coming from there. That was because on their way to the kitchen, they noticed that even thicker wave of stench was rising up from the stairs leading to the basement.
ボイラー室。
The boiler room.
またボイラーの調子が悪いんでしょうか。
Wonder if there's something wrong with the boiler again. Those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion boiler was old and had been playing up recently. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they had never smelled it belching out a stench like this before. So hello, wizard. Slay him.
今の音は
What was that sound? The sound that had heard from the basement had definitely been the sound of a door closing. Although she did phrase it like it was a question, Kumasawa too had hardly realized that the sound couldn't have been anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised that the sound in her knees gave away yet again and she cowered, because at that very moment no one could have been in the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been cowered together in Eva and Hideyoshi's room. So who could have caused the sound of a door closing just now?
カノンさん
Canon-san! Instantly countering the situation, Canon ran down towards the basement. Since they had heard the sound of a door closing just now and there was no trace of someone climbing the stairs, it meant that the person who had closed the door was just now inside the boiler room. If the boiler room had been dead end, Canon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily. But Canon was a servant, so he knew. There was two entrances that one that opened to the mansion and one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them now, they might have slipped away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Canon did, but she couldn't let him go alone. if the thing in the boiler room was the killer, the opportunity, who had easily killed 6 adults in their first murder, then Kana wouldn't be no match if he simply confronted them alone. Of course, by this argument, Kumasawa joining him alone wouldn't mean anything, but at any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided that she mustn't let Kana go alone, and she dashed down the stairs. Get your old lady legs moving. At that time, Kana was already in the boiler room. The boiler room's characteristic damp heat tormented them. It had been an unpleasantly smelly hot place. At the top of that, the room was full of the horrible stench which made Kanon feel like he was going to be sick. There was no doubt that this room was the origin. In that case, Kanon should have been searching for where the smell was coming from. However, Kanon had kept gazing straight forward as he grabbed a hatchet from a tool shed just off to the side of the door. He hadn't stretched out his hand because he'd wanted a hatchet. He had wanted to grab a weapon, any weapon. Why? Kind of gazed in darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. Then he answered.
ルーレットは数字と赤黒にかけて配当を競い合う。
At roulette, you bet on the number of the colors red or black, vying for a payoff.
だが赤か黒かのようなリスクの低い賭けはその程度の配当しか与えられない。
However, low-risk bets like red or black only offer a similarly low payoff. The words coming from Kanon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. The darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering. Oh no, not the foreboding butterflies. It was a very fantastical scene. Golden sparkling butterflies had hidden in the shadows all over the boiler room, flapped their wings twinkling beautifully and disappeared into the darkness gathering together. Kana continued speaking, directing his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. No, Lizard, don't inject yourself with butterflies. But as the butterflies gathered in the darkness, they probably must have laughed. But Kanon continued to speak without faltering in the slightest.
逆により的中率の低いかけ方をすれば
On the
そ
other
のリスク
hand,
に比例した配当が与えられる。親方様は天文学的なリスクを的中できることを、その結果得られる天文学的な配当を魔法と呼んでいた。
on the other hand, if you bet on something of a lower probability, you receive a payoff proportionally to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle, and called the astronomical payoff gained as a result magic.
親方様とお前がどんな魔法を求めてルーレットに挑んでいるのか、そんなことには興味ない。
I have no interest what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun that roulette.
しかしお前は忘れている。
But you forgot something.
ルーレットには赤でも黒でもない目が出うることを
You
忘れている。
You forgot that roulette has a pocket that is neither red nor black. Roulette has a special pocket called Zero, which means that the house takes everything in certain variants of the game. Meaning that all of the coins bet on the table will be swept up just as though everyone has forfeit.
僕は一つだけ心に決めていた。
I set my heart on one thing.
もし
That if
シャノンが殺されて僕が生き残るようなことがあったなら、
Shannon were to be killed and I was left
こ
alive,
の身を投げ出してお前のルーレットを全て台無しにしてやろうと。
I would bring this roulette of yours to ruin, even at the cost of my life.
これは親方様が決めたルールでも、ましてやお前が決めたルールでもない。このルールは僕が作った。僕はもう家具じゃない。
He's having a character development moment. This one isn't one of the master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself, and I'm not furniture anymore.
お前のルーレットのゼロなんだ。
I am the zero on your roulette. Kanon's face twisted with humiliation. It was clear that he had been dealt ridicule in response to his self-denial. Kanon's brow creased even further, and a furious expression that had never shown anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasped the hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slid down. It was clear that the emotion causing Kanon's hand to shake was not anger alone. However, Kanon suppressed that emotion.
僕はもうお前の言葉に惑わされたりはしない。
I won't let your words lead me astray again.
悪魔のルーレットはこれでおしまいだ。
This is where the demon's roulette ends.
地獄にてさらに1000年。次の召喚者を待つがいい。ベアドリーチェ！
Wait another 1,000 years in hell for your next summer, Beatrice. When Kana swung the hatchet upward and tried to deliver into the darkness definitely sneered. It sneered at that courage as vulgar, lazy, futile, and meaningless. Kanon, his hatchet still held aloft, couldn't take another step after that. With a clang, the hatchet that Kanon had been grasping fell and rolled on the floor. And following that with a pair of thuds, Kanon's knees hit left, then right. That hand, which looked like it was trying to catch the sky, now that the hatchet has been dropped, gradually lowered and rested on his chest. And then the other hand did the same. Oh, he dead. Right there were a handle like a demon-shaped design engraved upon it. The same type of weapon had been stabbed into Eva Hideyoshi's forehead was in Kanon's chest. Damn, he lost the roulette. Fresh blood dribbled in the corner of Kanon's mouth as it twisted in anguish. It was makeup too powerful into Kanon's white skin. Round the scene, the glittering gold butterflies danced mesmerizingly through the darkness. It was a beautiful, beautiful dance, a funeral march of tribute, ridicule, and contempt for a single boy's self-sacrifice. Kanon had already been prepared for his own death, but he attempted one last measure of resistance to reject death, and at least in the form it had been delivered to him. With both hands, he grasped the handle of the weapon, sticking into his chest, and gritting his teeth in the acute, unearthly pain, he pulled it out. For only a moment, a bright red spray gushed out. It made an unpleasant blood sound. It was probably resembled the sound of Kanon's soul as it was sucked into the swamp of the dead.
Kanon-san?
Kanon-san? Someone! Kumasawa screamed at the incomprehensible sight in front of her. Kanon was lying in a pool of blood. Kumasawa's heart was a complete mess. Ah, what a terrible fate. He couldn't have been killed if I had been with him. Ah, what an incredible fortune. If I had been with him, I might have been killed too. She screamed. Her expression was filled with a complete confusion, and all the muscles of her face were pulled up, almost as though she was smiling while crying. No one could have made fun of an expression such as this. What is it, Kumasawa? Answer me, Kumasawa. First one to dash in was Natsuki with the rifle and ready. Bella and Geji dashed in after her. Normally, they probably would have stayed discussing the origin of the violent stench filling the boiler room, But after what they saw, Cannon was lying on the ground as if he were drowning in an ocean of his own blood. The stench wasn't important anymore. Cannon! Answer me! Genji, bring Dr. Nanjo here! As he realized that even though Cannon was on the verge of death, he was still conscious, so she sent Genji to get the doctor. Nasi, holding the rifle afloat, faced the darkness in the center of the boiler room, shouted, "Who is hiding over there? Come out quietly. If you don't come out from there, I'll shoot you without mercy." A flashlight! A flashlight. Auntie, let's light him up. Bather, quickly thinking, took a large flashlight from the tool shelf alongside the door and used it to light to cut through the darkness Natsuki was glaring into. But the light only shone a mechanical-looking pipe and door. The door had been left open a small crack, but it was obvious that someone had left there in a hurry. Natsuki, where's that door go?
Genji!
Genji! Where does that door lead to? The courtyard. Like hell, I get you away with this, you damn bastard! Better let out a war cry as they slammed into the door. The cool air from outside suddenly rushed in. There was some thin, rough stairs leading up. Better ran up shouting, "Wait, Bata-kun! It's dangerous to be alone. Take this." Natsuki rushed up the stairs, chasing after Battler. At the top of the courtyard was a mansion that had been built strictly for lighting purposes, so it wasn't a very elegant place. Because it was surrounded by all sides, the air was calm and completely undisturbed, even though they couldn't hear the sounds of strong winds. There was only the gentle, sorrowful rain. Though the cold, scattered raindrops, Battler dashed up the stairs and into the courtyard, where he looked in every direction. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just standing around nonchalantly were pretty much zero. Battler turned around, looking in all directions. He turned again and again. He kept spinning until he almost lost his sense of direction. He prayed that he would see the culprit somewhere in the scenery, but there was no chance. All he saw was the spun was more and more of the mansion's heartless walls and windows. Furthermore, there were 2 entrances with the mansions from the courtyard, and neither of them were locked. Because the courtyard couldn't be entered from outside the mansion, the doors had been built without locks. He couldn't tell which one they had left, though. He had to give up. Battler poured the walls with his fist, swearing, "Battler-kun! You mustn't run ahead by yourself!" Battler-kun. Battler put his head against the wall and scratched it with his fingernails as he cried. Fuck! Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi, and now Cannon-kun too. You killed 6 fucking people and that wasn't enough, so you killed 3 more? Fuck you! Auntie Eva, Uncle Hideyoshi were always fun and kind to us. I just met Kanokun yesterday, but I'm sure I have gotten along fine with him. Why did you kill them? Why? People die when they're killed. Why? When people die, they don't come back to life again, you know? They aren't gonna quickly sprout out again like bamboo shoots. Why would you kill them? Why? Why? Balthor was a boy who could understand the feeling of pain and regret in a person's heart. So he cried. With all of his strength, Natsi, who had always thought of Balthor as a strong person, was a little surprised to find that he had this delicate side. At the same time, understood how easily hurt the heart of a young person could be, so she held him. It's all right.
あなたもジョージ君もマリアちゃんもジェシカも
I will
私が絶対に守ります。母として、そして後宮家の代表として。
It's alright, I will definitely protect you. George Kun, Maria-chan, and Jessica. As a mother and as a representative of the Yoshida-miya family. Balthor, after sobbing into Natsuki's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile and tried to convey that he had cried more than enough already, just as he had done the times before.
とにかく一度下に戻りましょう。
Anyway, let's go back down for now.
犯人を探すより自分たちの身を守る方が最優先です。
Protecting ourselves is a higher priority than finding the culprit.
明日になれば船が来る。
Tomorrow the boat will arrive.
そうすれば警察がやってきて、すべてを白日のもとにさらし出してくれるでしょう。
After that happens, the police will come and everything should be brought to light.
犯人がどうあがこうとも、この島から逃げられるものですか。
There's no way the killer can escape this island, no matter how much they struggle.
そうすべ。
Right.
警察さえ。
When the police comes, when the seagulls cry, the cry will be solved. But for some reason, Balthor felt a slight sense of uneasiness, as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, the lively seagulls should return to the harbor again. I returned to the boiler room along with Ann Natsuki and told the room weekly that we hadn't found anything. They told me that Dr. Nanja and George Aniki had carried Kanon-kun to the servant room. Servant room had a first aid kit and a sink that could apparently function as a nurse's office. Kumasawa and Jessica had accompanied them. Stain from Kanon-kun's blood remained on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood loss and the ruthless shape of the weapon that had fallen unceremoniously to the ground, I figured that Dr. Nanja's treatment would probably end in vain. The weapon was undoubtedly the same type that had been struck in Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's foreheads. But wait, isn't the demonic sign on the handle a little different? There seemed to be a small difference in that part. Still, as far as their overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all of the same type. Though it seemed brutal, we'd left the weapon stuck into Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi to preserve the crime scene, so this was the first time I was able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. Indeed, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick, or rather a thin stake. And also, it was a spiral-shaped design, kind of like a drill. To use a disturbing analogy, to look like something that might have been driven to the hearts of a human sacrifices is some demonic ritual. Including the handle, it was about 27 meters long. Half of that was the stake-shaped part, which was stained with the deep red blood. The length of the blood-stained part made it clear just how deeply it must have penetrated into Kanon-kun's chest. But Ann Natsuki and the rest were not even looking at the weapon, instead of standing in front of the incinerator where the horrible stench was emanating from. They had probably pulled that out of the furnace where it must have been burning. It was still smoldering. They kept sending out dense waves that was awfully unpleasant smell. Genji-san and Maria were staring down at it, and Natsuki probably couldn't stand to look directly at it. She kept shaking her head back into it. I thought that after everything that happened, nothing could surprise me anymore, but this was... ugh. I stood there for a while moaning with a rising urge to vomit. The true nature of that unearthly stench. Was the charred smell from within the incinerator? Of a burning corpse? The clothes, the surface of the body, and the hair were all hideously burned. That grotesque corpse was in a state where not the face, nor the age, nor even the gender could be guessed at. But then I thought about calmly. I realized that the corpse appearing that this time could only be one person. Grandfather. Who had disappeared that morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown. We finally found him! I believe it is most likely the master. I agree. That he would pass away in such a state. How heart-rending. But is there any proof that this corpse really is grandfather? It's burnt so black you can't even tell what sex it is. Butler, look at the feet. Anatsi and her handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes averted, pointed and told me to look at the burnt corpse feet. That it? Toes on both feet. Look closely. You're right. And just as Genji had said, there are 6 toes on each foot. Each of the toes had been arranged so normally that I hadn't noticed. Master had this uniquely characteristic toe since birth. Consequently, the master had entrusted with the revival of the Ishiramiya family. I have heard that since long ago, Kasa polydactyl were common in the Ishiramiya family. It's probably hereditary. Polydactyl literally means many fingers. Because of a little mistake by God, when the person is born, one of those toes or fingers split into 2s, and the total number increases. But a big deal isn't usually made of polydactyl in the world at large. That's because it isn't a disease, but something people are born with. So the hospital is already aware of it when they were still babies, and about that time they turned 1 year old, they were given surgery to make them normal. So even if a child has polydactyl, it is treated before they become self-aware, so they might not even remember it themselves. Incidentally, it seems that it can occur with the probability of about 1 in 2 every 1,000 babies. Even so, it's not unusually seen. It isn't that rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something to me long ago. Something about how even Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of a Sengoku period, possessed 6 fingers on one hand. According to Anatsi, among the many Ishiramiya family heads, the one praised most of their wisdom had all possessed polydactyl. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought that he might become another wise leader. And with the leading and relatives all died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that if anyone could restore the family from that, it would be grandfather because of that as suspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather had thought of being the head was not a bad gig, the 6 toes must have been pretty lucky for him. Come to think of it, I think I heard about some country where it's believed that people have polydactyly should be treated as gods or revered. It is besides the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels of a corpse to be burned to hide whose body it is. But it looks like grandfather's case was just being toasted wasn't enough to hide the proof of his identity. And grandfather's body was not simply burnt. Just like that, Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi and Kanon-kun too would have been stabbed in their chest. He had one of those demon ice picks stuck into his forehead. The head ring is not on his finger. So everything is at the letters last night said. Father. Father would probably be so horribly disappointed. And Natsu let her head droop and closed her eyes tightly. This room had become a vital crime scene for us to hand over to the police. It was decided that we would leave grandfather's corpse here and lock the room, sealing it. It wasn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator. Since according to Genji-san, the flame hadn't been that strong and the body must have started burning a long time ago. And that stench must have been slowly crept out of the furnace and filled the room bit by bit, eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. Putting aside whether he was rare or well done, grandfather had been brought out, killed, and burned, even though he had started out in the locked room created by his auto lock. There was probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji-san, the boiler room is usually locked. The probability that someone outside of the group was lurking around committing the crimes was now overwhelmingly high. And there was a good chance that this person was walking around with something like a mystery key. After all, the doors and windows throughout the mansion had been checked. But despite that, the culprit was freely strutting around the mansion. After this latest crime, can we now be sure that the 19th person exists? They hadn't shown themselves once, and yet they're trying to tout their existence. Along with Kiryu-san's chessboard theory, I've been using this contradiction to deny the existence of a 19th person. By flipping over the chessboard once more, the very fact that this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists means that the existence of a 19th person is even less possible. As long as a 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us. If the culprit could get grandfathers out through the door sealed by the receipt, if they could kill Auntie Eva and Hideyoshi from the other side of the door with a sealed chain, then this is possible for them to even create a fictional 19th person due to strange tricks and devices. If we still want to believe that the culprit is among us, then the list of suspects is very short. The four of us kids and Natsuhi, Genji-san, Kumasawa-ba-chan, Dr. Nanjo, and one of these people has to be the culprit. Wait, we can't be sure of that. Just a second ago, we started doubting whether the corpse here was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we should try thinking of the other bodies in the same way. For example, the first 6 all had their faces horribly destroyed. Some of the bodies have kept enough of their faces for us to confirm who they were, but my old bastards, for example, he had lost his entire face as though it had been peeled off. We had only figured out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Had the culprit prepared a fake body beforehand and disguised it to make it look like he had died, then hid somewhere and continued their killing spree. It sounded ridiculous, but that doesn't mean it's an impossible trick. It's too early to give in to the 19th person. No, the switch.
Maria-chan, それ以上しげしげと見てはなりません。
Maria-chan, you mustn't stare so fixedly anymore.
さあ、バトラ君も。
Come on, Battler-kun, you too.
カノンの容体も気になりますし、いつまでもこのようなところにはいられません。
I am worried about Kanon's condition, and I don't want to stay in a place like this any longer than I have to.
戻りましょう。
Let's go back. Maria hadn't gone out with everyone else, but had remained in the boiler room. The thing she was staring fixedly at was probably not grandfather's body, but the demon's ice pick that was sticking out from the forehead. no doubt an irresistible item for the obsessed. I rapped her on the head.
Oi, Maria.
Hey, Maria.
ベアトリーチェの目的は何なんだ?
What's Beatrice after?
俺たち全員の命か?
Is it all of our lives?
ベアトリーチェはもうすぐ蘇るんだよ。
Beatrice will revive very soon.
その時、誰も生き残れはしない。
At that time, none shall be left alive.
よくも笑えるもんだぜ。
How can you laugh at something like this?
自分だけ蚊帳の外だと思ってるのか?
Don't you think you're the only one who's safe?
どうして自分の身に危機が迫っていると感じない?
Why don't you feel like you're in danger?
どうして怯えない?
Why aren't you scared?
ベアトリーチェは約束してくれたもん。
Beatrice promised me.
私は黄金郷へ連れて行ってもらえるんだよ。
She said she's going to take me to the golden land.
そこはね、しがらみも何もないすべての人たちがずっと一緒にいつまでも優しくし合っていける素敵な場所なんだよ。
It's a wonderful place where you have no obligations. Everyone's always together and everyone's always nice to everyone else.
私は楽しみだよ。
I'm looking forward to it, you know.
その時はもうすぐだもん。
That time will come very soon now. Just what kind of person is Maria? I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago when she was 3. So as she had been pure and obedient, a good kid, this new Maria 6 years later and the Maria knew didn't seem to fit together. Just who is she, this witch who calls herself Maria? To her, with her obstinate belief in witches, the series of unsolvable crimes is proof that witches actually exist. Every time someone occurs that would be difficult for a human, it becomes a little harder for the rest of us to not believe in that witch is called Beatrice. It must be intense pleasure for Maria to see her relatives who once firmly denied the witch's existence start acknowledging her existence one by one. Is that why she is in high spirits?
Maria, もう一遍だけ聞く。どうせ答えは同じだろうがもう一遍だけ聞く。
Maria, let me ask you this one more time. You'll probably answer the same anyway, but I'll ask just once more.
お前は昨日バラ庭園で手紙をもらった。
Yesterday, you were given a letter in the rose garden.
そいつは誰なんだ?
Who gave it to you?
だからベアトリーチェ。
Like I said, Beatrice.
バトラがまだ信じない。
You still don't believe? Maria only repeated what she had already said. Maria had met with the 19th person, the witch. Had there really been a 19th person, or had been the one of the 18 who told her to say otherwise? All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always been an alibi, and hasn't done anything that would put her under suspicion. She's simply overjoyed that being made Beatrice's message and certainty is not our 19th person. I think. That's right. I wonder what's written in the letter we pick up in Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Anasi still have it with her. I'm guessing 3 hours later. The end, Kanako did not regain consciousness. Even though Dr. and Angela and the rest did all they could to heal him, there's very little that could be done in an island with this without medicine or proper facilities. However, Kaneko was the only human ever to confront the culprit. If only we could give us some kind of clue. But by the time he was carried here, it was already too late.
申し訳ありません。
My sincere apologies.
あのような重傷を設備のないところではどうしようも。
Without proper facilities, there was nothing I could do with such a serious wound.
いえ、無理もないことです。
No, that's perfectly understandable.
最善を尽くしてくださり。
Thank you so much for giving it your very best. Dr. Nanjo's shirt had been sprayed by a violent spurt of blood, so it was easy to imagine the devotion with which he had tried to save Kanekun's life up until the very last second. Jessica was crouched in the corridor, crying in anguish. She had probably been taking care of Kanekun until the moment of his death. George Aniki tried to approach her with words of comfort, but it was Jessica pushed him away. He stopped trying to interfere and left her alone.
私がカノンさんを一人で行かせなければ。
Oh, if only I hadn't let Kanon-san go alone. Oh.
気に病むことはない。
Don't let that bother you.
仮に一緒だったら、熊沢も襲われていたかもしれん。
Even if you had been with him, you may have been attacked as well.
それに、愚かにも先走ったゆえの自業自得だ。
He foolishly jumped forward and paid for his mistakes.
そんな言い方ってねえぜ。
How can you say it like that?
カノン君は犯人の姿を見つけて勇敢に立ち向かったんだ。
Kanekun spotted the killer and bravely stood up to them.
熊沢さんも一緒だったら犯人は躊躇して逃げることを選んだかもしれない。
If only Kumasawa-san had gone with him, the killer might have hesitated and chosen to run away. Emotion-filled words that I never thought I'd hear from the normally tactful Jessica tumbled down out of her mouth. Kumasawa, looking truly sorry, could do nothing but hang her head. Jessica.
今は言葉をかけるべきじゃない。
Now it's not the time for words.
僕だって。そしてバトラ君もだろう。
Even I feel as if, and probably you're the same.
もう何が何だかわからなくて心が張り裂けそうだよ。
As if I don't have the first clue what's going on anymore, as if my heart is going to split open. These were tears in George Aniki's eyes again. Seeing Jessica break down crying probably brought back the pain of losing his parents. I had already cried myself dry, so I didn't want to cry anymore. However, I felt myself the pain in their hearts.
大丈夫だよ、ジェシカお姉ちゃん。
It's alright, Jessicaone-chan.
カノンにだってまたすぐ会えるよ。
You'll be able to meet Kanon again soon.
よしてくれよ。
Stop it!
そういう慰めはいらねえぜ。
You aren't helping.
ベアトリーチェは死者も失った愛すらも蘇らせる。
Beaches will revive the dead and even the love they possess.
だからきっとすぐに会えるよ。
So you'll definitely be able to meet him soon.
そしてきっとみんなで穏やかに過ごせるから。
Then everyone will be able to live in peace.
カノン君を殺したのがマリアに昨日手紙を渡したっていうベアトリーチェなのか。
This Beatrice, who are you say gave the letter to you yesterday, is she the one who killed Kanon-kun?
そいつはどこにいるんだよ。
Where is she?
どこに隠れてるんだよ。
Where is she hiding?
私が見つけて引き裂いてやる。
I'll fight her and tear her limb from limb.
言えよ。知ってるんだろ。犯人の正体を。
Seiya, you know, don't you? You know who the killer really is.
お前は何を知っていて何を隠してるんだ。
What do you know and what are they hiding?
話しやがれ。
Tell me, damn it!
お嬢様、おやめください。
Milady, please stop.
ベアトリーチェはいる。
Beatrice exists!
いる。
Exists!
ちくしょう。源氏さん話せよ。
Damn it, let go of me, Genji.
マリアが犯人を知ってる。
Maria know who the killer is.
しかもそいつは知ってて隠してるんだ。
And she's been hiding it on purpose.
そして私たちの内情を伝えて殺しの手引きをしてるに違いないんだぜ。
She has been telling them what we're doing, guiding them as they kill us.
ジェシカ、静かにしなさい。
Jessica, be silent. Jessica rushed at Maria and grabbed a hold of her. Genji tried to stop her, but Jessica could not be calmed. The next thing I heard was the sound of a Nazi slapping Jessica's face. After that, only Jessica's sorrowful sobbing voice resounded throughout the hall. Maria-chan.
僕は君が断じて犯人ではないことを知っている。
I know that there's no way you're the one of the culprits.
君はいつも僕たちと一緒にいたし、犯人なんかと通じている時間はなかった。
You may have been with us since the beginning, and there is no time for you to communicate with any killer.
だから聞かせてほしい。
So, I want you to tell me something.
君に昨日手紙を渡したベアトリーチェとは誰なんだい？
This Beatrice who handed you the letter yesterday, who was she? Although those words seemed kind, they clearly showed that George still had some doubts about Maria. He hadn't tackled Maria. However, he felt exactly the same way Jessica did. Aniki.
同じことは俺もさっき聞いたぜ。
I asked her the same thing, only just now.
返事は同じさ。
The answer won't be any different.
マリアちゃんの口から聞きたい。
I want to hear from Maria-chan's mouth.
ベアトリーチェとは誰なんだい？
Who is Beatrice?
言ってもどうせ信じない。
Even if I tell you, you won't believe me in any way.
それはどういう意味だい？
What do you mean by that?
ひょっとして僕らのよく知る人物が犯人で。
Is it possible that the killer is someone we know well?
君は何かの事情からそれをかばうために黙っているというのかい？
And that for some reason, you're covering for them by remaining silent.
君はあの手紙を誰にもらったんだい？
Who gave you that letter?
ベアトリーチェにもらったんだよ。
I got it from Beatrice.
何度だって言う。
I'll say it no matter how many times you ask.
手紙はベアトリーチェにもらった。
I got the letter from Beatrice.
ジョージお兄ちゃんがベアトリーチェを信じないのは殴れる相手じゃないから？
Giorgio Oni-chan, do you refuse to believe in Beatrice because she is not an opponent you can hit?
ジョージお兄ちゃんはやるせない気持ちを暴力に変えて誰かにぶつけたいと思っている。
You want to trigger feelings of helplessness into violence and beat someone up.
だから殴れる相手が人間じゃなきゃ収まりがつかない。
So you won't be satisfied unless your opponent is a human you can hit.
だからそんなジョージお兄ちゃんには真実を話しても受け入れられない。
So even if I tell you the truth, you won't be able to accept it.
だから言っても無駄。
So it's pointless for me to tell you.
信じない。
You won't believe.
でもマリアは何度も言うよ。
But I will keep on saying it.
真実だから言うよ。
I'll say it because it's true.
ベアトリーチェはね、いるの。
Beatrice exists.
黄金鏡の扉はもうすぐ開かれるよ。
The door to the Golden Land will soon be opened.
マリアはそこに行くの。
And that's where I'm going.
ベアトリーチェが約束してくれたの。
Beatrice promised.
その世界ではママも優しくてパパも一緒で優しいの。
In that world, Mama is nice and Papa is with us and is also nice.
マリアは早くそこへ行きたいの。
I want to go there right away.
みんなはベアトリーチェのことを恐れている。
Everyone is afraid of Beatrice.
そしてそれは無理もないことだけど。
And this is only natural.
なら安心して。
But calm yourselves.
ベアトリーチェは言ってたよ。
Beatrice told me herself.
台風が去るまでに全てを終わらせるからって。
By the time the typhoon has passed, she will have ended everything. Ouchie.
饒舌なマリアも嫌いじゃねえが、とりあえずはそのくらいにしとけ。
Maria, I actually don't dislike you being talkative, but let's leave it at that for now.
魔女はいるいる言ってたお前にとってさぞや現状は愉快だろうが、とりあえずそいつはお前だけで噛み締めとけ。他人にまで押し付けるんじゃねえ。
I bet it's all pretty happy situation for you since you're going on about how witches exist, but keep that to yourself for the next time. Leave everyone else out of it. Okay, I think this is a good time to end it. Let's save. A lot of intense shit happened in this episode, that's for sure. Oh boy. My mouth is getting dry from all that reading. Ended on the brat being correct. She deserved it. Serves a good plap plap. Thanks for coming, everyone. Yeah, I got water with me, but it's not enough. Thank you for praising a puppet. It's always a struggle reading visual novels, you know. But that's okay. We'll conquer it together with my intense story time stream. But yeah, thanks everyone coming by. Usual, I want to say chill stream, but it was pretty intense with how things were handled. So it's like a half and half, I guess. Half chill, half intensity and trauma, all that stuff. So I'll see you guys next time. Not sure when though, but soon hopefully. Oh, thanks for the head pets. You fixed that. Yeah. Okay, I'll go rest my voice now, my voice box. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.
Préparez votre pâte dans une jatte plate.